What's up, guys? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Deck Talk Podcast. And man, I'm so stoked. I've been ready for this episode to hit the air, and I'm really excited that it is a live podcast. And but guys, if you don't know, I'm Colin Burnett.
That's right, Colin. And I am Norman Lee. But again, Colin, we got some business to take care of first. We have to talk about the sponsor for tonight's episode. Tonight's episode is brought to you by YOLO Tech. You never know when it's going to happen. That fish of a lifetime comes up out of nowhere and just destroys your bait. Never miss another memory-making moment with YOLO Tech. No more changing batteries in your camera. Now you can focus more on fishing and less about if your cameras are still recording. Capture every memory, capture every moment, all the time with YOLO Tech. Always be recording. Now, are you ready for this amazing deal? Click on the link in this episode and use our promo code DECKTALK20 and receive $20 off any purchase of $50 or more. Get geared up with YOLO Tech today and make sure to always be recording. Man, Colin, that is right. And you and me both, dude, have been looking forward to getting this cool dude on here. But anyway, let's get started with this. Let's get this guy deserves a great introduction. So let's see if we can do this right for him. Our guest tonight is a true Georgia boy. His passion for the outdoors stems from the teachings of his father at an early age, where he was hooked on bass fishing. As a guide, he found a purpose to share his knowledge and love of the sport with others. He is the owner and operator of Flukemaster, his YouTube channel that has amassed an astonishing 476,000 plus and growing followers and subscribers, in which he is able to share his passion and pass on his knowledge that he has gained through the years with other anglers. He is just coming off a Bassmaster Kayak Series win at Cato Lake this past October. His ability to use his platform to teach others has made him one of the most influential fishermen in the sport today. The man simply known as Flukemaster, Mr. Gene Jensen.
What's up, brother?
How about them apples?
So that's the show, guys. That's it. That's the intro. We're done. So, but guys,
I was gonna say go Dogs, but I don't think my Florida faithful would appreciate that.
So, but speaking of that, I knew everybody that knows Gene. He's always wearing that Georgia Bulldog hat, and so with me being a lifelong Nashville Predators, Vanderbilt Commodores, I had to support my Commodores just in this episode, and which actually this year we've actually got something to be proud of. So,
so when Vandy beat Alabama, I was at a sports bar in middle of nowhere, Alabama, with Damon, my travel and fishing partner, who's an Alabama fan. And oh my goodness, I was surprised nobody got in a fight with me. I started playing Vandy's fight song on my phone as loud as I could play it. I was rubbing it in hard.
Darren, I didn't say nothing during that game, but when it was, I guess within the last minute of the game, all my buddies that were Alabama fans, I just started sending anchor down to them. And so,
man.
But when you get a big win like that, I mean, we actually had quite a few wins. That was, I mean, a lot of it. If you look at it, I mean, the playoffs and then what teams that actually go into the SEC championship game with Vandy beating them made a difference in them. So. Yeah, I just wish they could have pulled off the Tennessee one. That would have been great.
For sure.
But your Dogs are going, and I think it's going to be a good game as long as they come out to play. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that here Saturday.
Yeah, our quarterback hasn't thrown an interception in 3 games, so I'm hoping he can. Yeah. He's passed all that.
Well, You need to start knocking on some wood after saying that.
I know it. Dadgummit, right.
But guys, I have been watching Gene. I mean, he is really the guy that has got me to start a YouTube channel, and then to be able to grow it to how I have, and so I've been watching Gene since 2009, and I mean he definitely did not have all the subscribers and followers and stuff that he had back then, but to be able to see his journey and feel like I'm growing with him, and to be able to have him on, it is an honor to be able to have him on. I've learned so much, and my fishing level has definitely rose with watching the all his videos, and if there's a technique, I guarantee you there may be one or two techniques or baits and stuff that you have not put on there, but if not, I mean, you pretty much hit the whole fishing spectrum.
I've got most of it. There's like the new stuff, like all the little minnow jig head stuff like that. I'm still trying to get good enough to where I feel like I can teach somebody how to do it. But I've never done one on an Alabama rig. Have no desire to it. I'll fish it every once in a while. I don't like putting that many hooks in the side of a fish, and so so I just don't. I have never done one with that, but I can't. You're right. I've done a lot of them. I've done multiples of several of them. So
right, and the thing is, in which we talked earlier about it, Gene, is the fact that you make it so easy for people to understand. And you could just be some Joe Schmo coming off the road and watch a video, and you're like, hey, I want to catch a bass. And you can click on one of your videos, and you're going to tell them how to your rod setup, to your line, to the bait, and how you need to retrieve it. And the thing about it, like what we was talking earlier, was you actually show yourself fishing it. And so, and that makes a big difference to me, because a lot of people just talk about it and expect you to take it and learn. I'm a visual person. Yep. I can pick up, if I see you do it, then I can duplicate it. And so, but Gene, man, I hope everybody right now, we've got, looks like 600 people on here right now. So I'm hoping by the time it'll keep on growing, but by the time, I hope that you're going to message me back and be like, man, these guys just came over. My followings are just picked up a couple hundred or whatever. And so, but I can't thank you enough, Gene. I mean, because you really put me in this position to be able to talk to you, talk to all the anglers and stuff. Because if it wasn't you just saying, just get a camera. You don't need a big camera. You can use your phone. Just get out there and do it.
Yep.
I definitely would not be here if it wasn't for you.
Yeah, so I've said that to you and many other people. Stop talking about it and start. Just I can't count how many times I've heard I'm about to start a YouTube channel. I'm like,
do it. Yep.
Yeah, because you're going to make mistakes at the beginning, but that's how you learn. That's at least, and in going back to how me showing you how to do it on my videos, you can always teach what to use, when to use, and where to use it. But if you don't show people how to use it, the other ones are just pointless. Yeah. For a lot of us, because I'm the same way. I'm a visual learner. I have to keep it simple, stupid, not for my viewers, but for myself.
Right.
And so it is, that's just, and for years, I've realized that I have a God-given talent to teach. I don't like to teach like math and arithmetic and all that crap that you learned in public school. I mean, I like to fish, to teach real world stuff.
Yeah.
So, how did you get started? Well, first thing off, I do want to say thank you because a lot of people may not know, but thank you for your time and service that you served the country.
Amen.
We love all of our service members and stuff, and so every time we get somebody that's served, we want to definitely shout them out. And I know y'all hear that all the time. Thank you for your time. And stuff.
No, I appreciate it.
We really mean it. So I want to know, like, how did you get started into fishing? I know that it started way back when you was a kid and all that, but how did you get started into it?
So, and my dad was a trout fisherman. And so I grew up going to North Georgia, and then later on, when most of my brothers and sisters were out of the house, and my dad actually had money, we would travel out west and fish,
Nice.
Henry's Fork and the Snake River and all up in Idaho and Wyoming and things like that. Where he grew up fishing.
Right.
And so we'd go out there, and my grandmother had a friend that had a cabin on Henry's Fork Reservoir, which is one of the premier trout fishing places in the world. And she would charge us $25 a week. So the only rule was we had to shut the gas off when we left. And so we would go up there for 2-3 weeks at a time and just go into Yellowstone and fish and all around that area. So that's kind of where I grew up doing that. But mainly just my dad used it to keep me out of trouble as a teenager. So while my friends and stuff were out drinking and partying on the weekends, I was in bed because me and Dad were getting up to go to North Georgia to go trout fishing in the morning or go hunting or whatever else. I mean, I did things with my dad every weekend. And so he was a bigger outdoorsman than I was for sure. And then but my best friend in high school was a bass fisherman, and he introduced me to bass fishing right down the street in a little pond, right at the other end of my road. And that's when I fell in love with bass fishing. I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to travel 2.5 hours to North Georgia. I can go right here. And then fast forward, I got, went in the Army. And then towards the end of my Army career, I was at Fort Gordon and had 22 ponds in the back of Fort Gordon. And I wanted to get better, and the internet was kind of new, and forums were the place to go. And so I went to forums, and that's when the name Flukemaster started, was I had to come up with a name for the daggum forums. And once YouTube took off, I couldn't shake that name. And so I had to own it. And then I started to, through several different avenues, I came up with the idea of YouTube, and YouTube was only like a year and a half old when I started. So most people don't realize is back then we had to fill out job applications to get part of the partner program for YouTube. It was a literal application that you see when you go fill out go work at McDonald's or anything else.
Right.
And then they would come and look at your channel and see whether you were, worth it or not. And they could say yes or no for any reason.
Right.
And so that's how that all started. And then it took me 4 years of YouTube before I got my first $100 check.
That sounds about right. So, but how was it a tough decision to go from the medical field to be a full-time content creator?
No, not really. It was scary. I've been shooting x-rays for 16 years or for 19 years, and I loved it, but I told my wife, and this was probably 7-8 years after I started doing YouTube. So, but I saw the growth, and I saw it continuing to double and stuff like that. So I did the math, which is a miracle. But I did the math and figured out about what time what month and what year I would be making as much money on YouTube and through sponsors than I was at the hospital. And so I set that as a goal, and that was 4 years before it happened. I set that as a goal. I said, March or April of whatever year it is, I'm gonna seriously consider quitting my job. And that's when we always lived off of one paycheck. We didn't do it dumb. I didn't quit my day job to start something. It was already going.
Right.
I really didn't have a choice but to leave because it was going hard.
Yeah.
And so the scary thing is I bought a house. I bought this farm. It's a 7-acre horse farm. Don't have any horses. So you can't eat horses. So I don't have horses, but I bought this farm, and 2 hours later I sent in my notice to work. And because a bank won't give you a loan unless you got a job. So
right. Now you do. You are pretty much. You do have a pretty good green thumb as well. That you've done some videos and stuff with about the gardening and stuff that you've done. And
I've been working on that today. Matter of fact. So,
well, you got to get it done before tomorrow, because tomorrow morning I think it's going to be 18.
all
Like
I'm
that.
doing now is planning. I got a refrigerator full of seeds right here to my left, and I'm just planting stuff and getting everything ready. And then I've got to rebuild. I had to move my garden over 75 feet, so I've got to rebuild a fence. So I'm planning all that, and I don't have the money to do that, so I've got to plan it smart and have it done by the time I need it. By the time things start growing. So
yeah. So we do have a question from Josh, and it says, Flukemaster, he says, I love watching your videos, but quick question. I have a loose bait caster that I tend to, that 8 out of 10 times I have a bird's nest in it. How can I solve that?
Is he fishing braid? Is what I would guess. He's either one fishing braid, and it's 40-pound test braid or 30, or two, he is fishing a lure where he reels in the slack line. Yeah. And a lot of times when you're fishing like a Texas rig or something, or Carolina rig, where you're reeling in that slack line, don't reel it in when it's totally slack, because you get so much loose line on that spool that you're every 10, 15, 20 cast, you'll backlash. I do it, So,
and if somebody says that they don't backlash, they're telling you the biggest lie out there.
Yeah, exactly. But my worst thing is 30 and 40-pound braid, because I guess it's because of the diameter and how light it is, and
how light it is. Right.
I backlash a lot with braid, and until I get to the 50 and 60-pound test braid, and then I don't do it nearly as much. And so, and that's actually caused me to get away from a lot of techniques I used to use braid and go back to fluorocarbon.
Right.
But those are usually, no matter what bait caster it is, usually those are the two reasons why you have a consistent every, several cast backlash.
Right. And he also, Josh, I know he at least has 1 or 2 videos on his channel, and the link is in the description, so you can click on it or just go to YouTube and just look up Flukemaster, and he shows you how to adjust it. And a tip that he showed in one of them that helped me out when I was starting to throw a bait caster was electrical tape, pulling out however far and then put electrical tape in it and then reeling it in that way. And that really does help as well. Check out.
You figure out how far you think you're going to cast, then you pull out 4 or 5 more lengths out, and then tape your reel with either masking tape or electrical tape. And that just prevents a backlash that you can't get out, and it gets frustrating. You throw the thing in the box and you go back to a spinning reel.
Right.
So that's what happened here.
So I want to, let's see. I got questions. We got people on here saying Bama let them win, and but let's see. For people that are trying to get into kayak fishing, that one, maybe they cannot. I mean, because boats right now are through the roof, and or they just want to get out into a kayak. What's the easiest way? Because they don't have to go out there and spend 10, 12 grand on a kayak to be able to have everything on there. But what's the easiest way for somebody to be able to go get into a kayak and see which kayak is that will fit them? Because I know like different people are different sizes, and which I know you love them bona fides, and so how can somebody be able to get into kayak fishing? What would be the best advice that you could give to get somebody into?
Get on Google and find find a few paddle shops that sell fishing kayaks, first of all, and then just call them and say, do you have demo days, or do you allow me to take a kayak out? Some of them allow you to rent out or take out a kayak. I know there's one in Chattanooga that used to do it. I don't know if they still do. Let you take one out and test it and see what you like. My favorite are demo days. So Westbrook Supply, which is the paddle shop I work with here in Atlanta, once a year, sometimes twice a year, we have a demo day out on Lake Lanier. where all the pro staff bring all their kayaks, and then a couple of the companies bring their kayaks and paddle boards and inflatables, and we'll have 100 kayaks out there to try out at least. And we have it all planned. We have hot dogs and hamburgers cooking. It's just a good big party, and everybody's coming in and testing out boats. And and then we don't sell them there. You end up coming into the shop if you want to, or best thing it does. The biggest thing it does is it gives you an idea of what you like and what you don't like, because every kayak's different and every butt's different, and everybody wants one thing or the other. And the pro staff is really good. Our pro staff is a family. I mean, we're having a Friendsgiving on Sunday. We get together all the time, and so we're really good at explaining and helping you. If you don't like this bona fide, I'll send you over to this guy who does native, or I'll send you over to this guy who knows more about, new canoe and stuff like that. And you'll be able to try them all out and get expert advice on it. We're not trying to sell your boat. We're trying to put you in the best one you can. Right. If you don't have a paddle shop like that, then I would suggest travel to Atlanta and spend that weekend hanging out with us at West, in Lake Lanier, because it's just a fun deal. But that's one thing. And the second thing is don't settle for a cheap kayak that doesn't feel good for you. And my suggestion is, price-wise, is at this day and age, I used to say $800. Now it's about, because of the economy and stuff like that, try to save your money up to where you can afford at least a kayak that's $1,000.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get one that's rotomolded and it's a little bit safer. And, my travel partner fished out of a Bass Pro Shop kayak for 4 years before he was able to afford a native. And he flipped that thing twice and lost $3,000 worth of gear during those two flips.
Yeah.
And, so you kind of gotta, figure it out that way. And then if you're going to paddle, get a really good paddle.
Yeah.
Don't get a cheap aluminum one that's so heavy that you don't want to really use it all day long.
Now, I was going to ask you too, and you just mentioned about your buddy or whatever overturning one. How is most kayaks fairly stable as far as somebody wanting to get into kayak fishing that's never fished out of a kayak?
Yeah.
Does somebody have to have good balance, or are they pretty stable when you stand up?
Most of them these days, like I said, you get to that $1,000 range, that $800,000, or unless you buy a used one, which is another good option, is to go buy one that somebody's selling because a new model came out and they bought that one. That kind of stuff. Most of them you can stand up in, and typically, no matter who you are, unless you've got some really bad equilibrium, most of people can get comfortable standing in about 20 or 30 minutes of doing it.
I got you.
And so I never recommend doing it in the wintertime. Always make sure the water's safe and stuff like that. And the number one rule is always wear your PFD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't put it behind you. I am the first one that will come up to you in a lake and say, please put your PFD on. I don't want to come drag your body out of this water.
Yeah.
And so it's important, because I've fallen out twice. Have I fallen out 3 times? 3 times. And every time I had my PFD on, and one time, if I had not been able to get back in my boat, I was 7 miles from the closest anything.
Yeah.
Anything, like boat ramp and gators everywhere. I was on Caddo Lake. I was 7 miles from anywhere, and it was a weekday and there was nobody there.
Wow.
So
that was going to be my next question, because I remember you done a video of talking just about the safety and stuff like that. That the main thing when you get into a kayak, you need to fall off, like, don't put no gear on there. Yep. You need to be able to get out or get into the water to where you can get yourself into the water. And then one of the funny things about that video, Norman, he did say, I suggest that it's not in gator infested water. So.
Yeah. I mean, but and that's a skill that will save your life. And it's something that really needs to be practiced, is getting back up in a kayak in open water where you can't reach the bottom.
Yeah.
And no matter how fat you are and how big of a belly you are, it can be done as long as you have practiced it. I did a seminar in Indiana last February, and I'll be back up there again at the Indiana Sports Show. But I did a safety seminar, and like 2 months later, one of the guys, and only like 4 people showed up to that safety seminar every time. And I did it 9 times. And one guy contacted me, said, "Dude, your seminar saved my life."
Wow.
Because he had fallen.
Well,
out
I mean,
of
and that's worth it. It's just that one person just says that.
Sure.
Yeah,
and I told him this year when I signed the contract, I said, I want to do a couple of different seminars, but I want to do the safety seminar the busiest days of the show.
Now, do they make PFDs that are for kayak fishermen? That's not so big and bulky that doesn't restrict you so much.
Yeah, and I never suggest the self-inflate or the inflatable ones.
Yeah, because
I don't trust my life to anything mechanical. I'm the son of an engineer, and I've got brothers who are engineers. I got a brother who's a rocket scientist, and I'll be the first to tell you I don't trust anything mechanical.
Because that's what I was going to ask you. Because for us bass boaters, and I use the the inflatable from time to time. I don't use them a lot, but I do. But legally, to have one of the CO2 cartridge vest on, you actually have to have. It's not a life preserver unless you're wearing it.
Unless you're wearing it.
But I didn't know if they actually make something a little bit less restricting other than.
Well, you kind of, they do. NRS makes a good one. Stolquist makes one. Stolquist is in the process of changing some of their PFDs, but mine is bulky, but it's got pockets and it's got things I can put my phone in and everything else. But the biggest thing is a pad that's up above the seat.
I got you.
You know, and I fish in Georgia. I mean, you guys are in Tennessee. You know how hot it gets here in the South.
Oh yeah.
And I'm there. I always have mine on. I just make sure I got enough water.
Yeah.
Because it ain't worth it, dude. Seriously, it ain't worth it.
Yeah.
No. And I want to say, I wanted to know, like, the first time that I had ever met Gene was I had messaged and talked to him. We've got mutual friends, and then I told him that I actually had a benefit tournament that was going on, about 50 legs. And so I met him up in Dayton, Tennessee. It just so happened that his boy was fishing a high school tournament out of Dayton, and that was it was a rough time. The water was fluctuating and all that stuff. but I got to meet him, and the friendship started there. And guys, so you hear us talking about kayak fishing and stuff like that. Just because we're talking kayaks does not mean that it does not translate into bass fishing, because actually he had your aluminum craft. A buddy of ours actually is using it now, or got it from you, and he's actually put some pretty big fish out of Chickamauga.
He's got hundreds of fish bigger than anyone I ever put in that boat.
And just the story of, I mean, because if you don't know, we're talking about Caleb Bell with Bass Quest, and he, the story he caught this past February or something like that, he caught a 14-2.
January 4th.
Yeah. And so he ended up, the story of how he caught that fish was just crazy. I tell him all the time that, I mean, I don't know if he's a fish whisperer or whatever, but he's got something going on there where he knows where them big uns are. But
you and I are totally agree on that, because I've known him for many, many years, and he is, he's one of those that you want to have in the boat during a tournament if you've got to get a kicker, because he's going to catch it.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I brought him up is for this. He told us, because like right now, when we had the hurricane come through North Carolina, like we're still seeing, like, Chickamauga looks like chocolate milk on the main channel. And you know how it is fishing on Chick, that everybody, you just grab a ticket and line up on the ledges and fishing ledges. Well, right now there is no ledge fishing because it's so chocolate milk, and everybody's pushed back up into all the creeks and sloughs and stuff because it's still that bad. And that's been I think September 27th is when that happened.
Yep.
And so But it's just been crazy. And he was telling us, we had him on, and he was saying, like, when the water gets like this, he wants the fish tend to go back up into the pockets. And so people think their mindset is I want to follow the fish. And when he was talking to us, he told us that he wants to stay out in front, about a day out in front, because them big fish, the bigger fish tend to be the lead of the pack. So if you have that school of fish that's moving into where most people are staying on, he's wanting to be out in front of them to where the likelihood of him catching them big fish. And to me, I was like, boom, just blew my mind. I'm like, how in the world? And so,
matter of fact, it was a suggestion that he made that helped me key in on where I could find the big fish for that tournament right there. And
we're gonna get to that.
Being at the lead of the school. Yep.
Yeah. So, let's see. Bobby says, "What is your biggest bass that you have caught?"
10 pounds, 12 ounces. And to name drop, I was on a private lake in Auburn, Alabama, doing a photo shoot for Hobie, as a matter of fact. So it was before Bonafide, before Jackson, and Hank Parker was right down the other end of the bank filming a TV show. And so I went right, and when he went left, I went right to stay out of his shots because I was just catching fish for pictures. And I caught that 10-12, and I love Hank to death. He didn't talk to me for 2 days.
Well, my biggest best day that I had my 3 biggest fish actually come not too terribly far from where you're at, from Salicoa Creek. Have you ever fished there?
Mm-mm.
And you need to look that place up just to say.
I got it. Give me a second.
Yeah. I had my best day that I've ever had on the water. I had 3 fish for 24 pounds. And but my dad, I had one over 10 on there, and I was throwing a Damiki vault, and my dad went. I had it up to the boat, and my dad went to go net it, and the fish went to go run up underneath the boat and hit the Damiki vault, and all you heard is ting, and then the Damiki vault goes flying up over my head, and there goes the one that was over 10. But if you haven't fished that one, Gene,
I've got the boat ramp marked on my map, but it's the Four Waters Lake is what it's called, but it's the Salicoa Creek Park.
Yeah.
So, Salicoa is the one that runs into it. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Yeah, that and the great thing, and we usually just call it Lake X, Gene. Yeah. So because we don't want a bunch of people going over there, but and the great thing about it is because it's on electric motor only, so that you know how the Georgia hill, the lakes up in the hills and stuff, or in the mountains and stuff, how they've got some pretty big fish up in there. I mean, not just that one. I mean, Clark Hill and all that has got some pretty nice ones too. So, but you need to go check that one out.
Oh,
you don't have any phone service though.
I got Starlink on my kayak. I'm good.
It's crazy how many big fish this lake has in it. And Colin made a comment to me one time, it has so many good fish. It's such a great little, body of water to fish. Why isn't more fishermen know about this and put their boats in there? Like, well, most bass boaters, unless you could get up on plane at the ramp and do 70 miles an hour, about 20 miles down the lake, isn't going to. I'm like, they don't want to go on places no matter how many big fish is in it if you have to just drop your trolling motor. But like Colin said, it's an amazing place to fish, man. We had a good time a couple times going there. But
the lake down the road from my house, I caught 150 over 5 pounds this year, and bass boaters don't like to get on it because it's idle speed only. They can put but it's also a very difficult lake to fish. It's an offshore lake. If you can't read your electronics, you're done. But The only time they ever come shallow is to spawn, and then they disappear again if you don't know where to go. And I've got they're 2 lakes about 250 acres apiece, and I've got over 800 waypoints on those lakes. So.
So, let's see. Another question is, when in wintertime, do you always throw a smaller swim bait, or do you throw a bigger swim bait in wintertime?
I throw the same swim baits I throw all year long. I like 7-inch trick shads. I just am really patient, so I can throw it out and let them sink for 30, 40, 50 seconds, however long it takes for them to get down to where I need them to go. And then with live scope, you can slowly work them back and just keep them in that strike zone or at that depth. And then I don't see any reason, especially if I'm fishing a lake that's known to have big bass and it has big gizzard shad. I'm not trying to match the hatch with the shad that the thread fin that are this long. I'm trying to match the big ones, eat the big gizzard shad.
Exactly.
In Guntersville, especially this time of the year, fall into, and I know Chickamauga and stuff like that is just like this. If you find an area that's full of big gizzard shad, that's where your big fish are.
Right.
Hang out, go fishing.
Yeah. And I ran back on Chick and ran back into this pocket, and I found where the gizzard shad went from usually what I was seeing at like the mouths and stuff, and at the secondary points was like 2 to 3 inch gizzard shad. But then back in the back of this pocket, they were in like 8 to 14 inches of water of like 4.5 inch gizzard shad, and just going in there throwing a swim bait or a glide bait. And man, that was one thing that I have learned from Caleb was, if they have a choice of eating a 2 to 3 inch or a 4 inch, you're going to eat that 4 inch, and the likelihood of it going to be a bigger fish is going to be on that bigger bait. So let's talk about Guntersville for a second. And everybody knows that Guntersville is a frog lake. And so when you pull up onto a grass mat, when do you decide, all right, I'm going to throw a frog, to when you're going to punch the mats? Is there some kind of thinking that you're going through, that when you know when to change from either or, going either way?
All right, so let's do mats 101. If I pull up on a mat and I don't hear anything, I leave. It got to have bluegill popping. It's got to sound like popcorn going off in the mat, and the louder the better. But even if there's just a little bit, I'll still try it. Now, if there's little holes in it, if it seems like it's not very thick, I'm going to throw a frog first.
Right.
Now, I'm going to throw a frog because they can get up through the mat. But if I think it's really, really thick and they can't, and a lot of times if you throw a frog across it and they're hitting it, but they're bumping it, but they aren't getting it because they can't get up through the mat. They see the frog, they can barely see it, and they come up and they just punch it and you don't get it. That's when I'll start punching. But if I pull up and I already feel like it's thick enough, I'll grab that 1.25 ounce, 1.5 ounce. And I always throw an 1.25 ounce. I hate going 1.5 ounce to 2 ounces, because you lose a bunch of fish as big as those weights are. So I'll start punching through and I stay on the edges, because if the bass can't get up through it to eat it, they're going to stay on the edges so they can eat what swims by anyway. So
right.
I rarely ever punch a long ways away from the edge.
Right. Now, and when in both of those, excuse me, both of those setups, you have braid on, correct?
Yes. Yep. 65-pound braid.
Yep. And so he actually has, guys, he has a video. I want to say that it may have, I don't know. I don't want to say it. I was thinking that it may have been on Chick. It's probably on Guntersville, to where he pulls up on, and he's just like what he said. He sees all these little potholes, little deals, and he was just pitching into it. And I think what you said, you may pitch in 100 times, but then that one,
Yep.
And once you got it figured out, and I mean, you went on a pretty good streak right there during that video.
Yeah,
So,
that was Chick. That was on Chick.
So, where did the love that you have of teaching just people, it don't even have to be people that you know, where did the love of teaching fishing come from, to where you wanted to be able to record it to help so many people out?
So when I was doing forums, I was a moderator on Bass Resource, if you guys remember that
Right.
that website. So and we had a get together, and I through circumstance was able to take Bob Lusk, the owner and editor of Pond Boss magazine. He's one of the top biologists in the country. I was able to take him fishing, and we had a great time, dude. I was on a school of little bitty spotted bass, probably 10,000 spotted bass, and we drop, throwing a drop shot and a shaky head, we catch them every single drop. And we just had a good time. Well, 3-4 weeks later, he gets a hold of me. He's like, dude, can you meet me up in North Carolina? I want to talk to you about a job opportunity. I'm like, what? I was like, you live in Texarkana. What am I? And so I put 2 and 2 together and realized he was working on this really special private lake project up in North Carolina called the Kingfisher Society. And I went up there, went fishing, and they offered me a job as a guide there. So I started guiding there. Now this is high dollar, $1,000 a day per person. They get a private chef. They have a cabin, the whole 9 yards. So I was a glorified fishing caddy, is all I was. And so it was fun because I got to meet a lot of very wealthy people, a lot of businessmen who spent their entire life doing business and not enjoying nature and stuff like that. A lot of guys who hadn't touched a fishing rod in their entire life or in years and years. And there was one older gentleman. He was in his 80s, and he was in the back of the boat, and I'm sitting in the console the whole day. And I never could connect with him. Never could connect with him. Right. And he was just really quiet. I taught him how to throw a Texas rig, and then I would show him that all of a sudden I'd look over and his line was swimming off to the side, and he's just. And I'm like, you want to set the hook on that? So I spent a lot of time digging worms out of the guts of these fish. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like I said, I couldn't connect with him. He turned and looked at me and he said, I just had one of the best days of my life. And I said, really? I was like, and I realized that there's something special about being on the water, and that everybody, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done in their life, and everybody deserves the opportunity to go out and enjoy what I do, and enjoy fishing. And at the same time, I was talking with my buddies like Mike Buca, Bullshad Buca. He's been a friend of mine since long before he started making swim baits. So I've known him for years. And I was trying to find my place in the industry, and he was the one that said, "Don't do what everybody else is doing, or you're never going to get anywhere." So that was through that and YouTube starting and everything else. The light bulb came on, and I was like, I want to teach people how to fish because Bill Dance isn't doing it anymore. Nobody else is doing it anymore. YouTube is brand new, and I just want to do this. And so I started doing it. And also I was a scoutmaster, and I had some scouts that wanted to learn how to fish, and I couldn't take them every weekend. So same sort of deal. It all just came together. Right. It was like a one big landslide that came together, and I just started doing it. And, didn't know that I was going to be the first, and I didn't know that I was going to be one. It was going to be what it is now, but I just did it because I loved it. So,
yeah. And the thing is, and I think, we've talked about it and like prior times that we've met and stuff that, and I told you about me starting my YouTube channel. And that was one thing that you said to me was to be different. And, if you want to succeed, you have to be different. And so like with my YouTube channel, I want it to be to where like when we're out on the boat that people can see we don't even have to be best friends or anything, but something about being on the deck of the boat with somebody else and just talking, that you just see that camaraderie just form. And so to me, and that's what I think is important, is to be able to show the camaraderie that the fishing family has. And so that's where I wanted to focus. And then like even with the podcast, we took like wanting to do it live from you because I thought it's different. It was different because, and then we can, because like right now we've got over 1,300 people on right now, and never thought that the podcast would do what it's done. But we're able to, with doing media for bass, going and doing like the classic and stuff, and filming at the classic and then at Red Crest, we're able to meet all these anglers and going to ICAST and all the stuff that we do. We're able to talk to them. So having people on that are friends and that people may idolize and think, man, I never had the opportunity to be able to talk to Gene Jensen or Iaconelli or something like that. And so that's what we wanted to do, is to have them to have a platform to where they can just ask us questions.
Yep.
So
I love to do that. I mean, Q&As are that's why I put the Starlink on my kayak, is so I can have live deals out on my kayak.
Right.
I do TikTok lives during my tournaments, and then I do Facebook and YouTube lives while I'm just fishing, just fun fishing, where I can Q&A. As a matter of fact, I finally it's on my desk. I got a chesty that I can put my phone to now, that magnetically attaches to my phone, where I can do that and still have the POV view that everybody likes.
Hey, Gene, what advice could you give to maybe someone that's watching right now? If someone's inspiring to start filming or maybe start a YouTube channel, because I don't think a lot of people realizes that you don't need to go out. Colin mentioned when we first started the podcast, first went live, mentioned this. A lot of people, I don't think, realizes that you don't need to start out and go out and buy an expensive GoPro or an expensive camera. You got this right here, and this takes as good a quality videos as a lot of your expensive cameras. So what advice could you give someone that wants to start out, maybe start a YouTube channel?
You just said it. You've got the tools.
Yeah.
Do it. You can edit for free. I mean, you don't have to. You're not looking for a professional production. Matter of fact, 3, maybe 4 years into YouTube, when things were starting to really take off, one of the moderators of Bass Resource said, "You shouldn't put a video out unless it's perfect." And I looked at him and I said, if I had to wait for one to be perfect, I would never put a video out. They're never
That's true.
The most popular video I hate, because there was so much of it I left out on accident, and but it's my most popular video. And it had a lot of information in it, but there was just so much left out. I'm like, man, I really don't even want to post this, and I still did. But the biggest thing is stop making excuses to why you can't do it. And then don't quit. I'm just the guy that didn't quit, is all I am.
And don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah. I mean, failure is great. I mean, if I experiment maybe too much, with it. And I've seen huge drops in subscribers and that kind of stuff. And YouTube changes so much. I got to the point where I don't even pay attention to what they do anymore, because it's like trying to hit a moving target. Can't do it. And so, but it's fun, dude. If you don't love it, don't do it.
You have to have the passion for it.
Try it. And if you don't love it, find something else, because it is a lot of work. I think I told Edwin Evers when he came to me years ago, and he's like, should I start one? I said, well, let me explain something. And I explained to him the amount of time it takes and stuff like that. And it took him 2 or 3 years before he started one. And then then the rest is history for him.
Yeah. Patrick says, hey guys, hope all is well. I follow Gene and learn a lot from him. Thank you, sir, for your time to take to show the different techniques about fishing. Keep it up. So
thank you.
There is another question, and I've asked you this on your lives multiple times, and I know the answer that you give, but I think it's important for people, especially beginner fishermen, maybe even experienced fishermen, they don't think about it. And let's say you've got 10 frogs. All 10 are different colors, but 8 of them 10 frogs have a white belly on it. The other two, one may have a black, and the other one, let's say, has a brown belly. So how many frogs do you really have out of them 10 that you really have?
Yep. And it's not very many, because I'll tell you the story. Live Target. Okay. When they first came on the scene years ago, Live Target came out with 4 frogs. Okay. And that was when they were at ICAST and everything else. And I went up to since then I've gotten to know he just doesn't work for me anymore, but the product designer for them. I was also their marketing guy. And so I picked up those 4 frogs and I flipped them upside down, and they were all white on the bottom. I said, "That's cool. You got a white frog."
Yeah.
I was like, "You just came out with 4 white frogs," and me being the smart butt that I am, but I meant it 100%. You just came out with 4 white frogs.
Yep.
And he's like, "What?" I was like, "The bass don't see this side, bro. They see this side."
Yeah. And I think that's where I got that, is because I remember watching one of your videos, and you told that story. Mm-hmm. And so whenever somebody on your live starts talking about frogs, that's when I would bring that question up, because I think that people don't think about it. And you are exactly right. I mean, all they see is that belly part. So if you got 4 of them that are white bellies, you just got white frog.
Yep, exactly.
The color on the top is just for the people's eyes.
Yep. And to answer the next question, I like black, white, brown or green pumpkin. Doesn't really matter. Spro makes that green pumpkin color that I really like in grassy waters. For some reason, it tends to work like, and yellow.
Yes.
Don't know why they hate school bus yellow, but you can get them. You can crush them at points in time, especially in the mats on a yellow belly frog. And so those are the 4 colors I use, and combinations of the other ones. I very seldom have I found a different color that works better than any of those 4. So
yeah, and I mean, and I can remember your videos. I mean, I don't think I've got my frogs. I think it's actually in the boat. But if I pull out my trays of frogs, all it's going to be, I'll have the white, black, and like a brown, or it's just going to be those 3 is a white, brown. I don't have a yellow. I may have to get me a yellow just to try it out and see what I can do.
Yep.
But so when because frog fishing and stuff, and what around the Tennessee River and everywhere, like, it really doesn't start happening until that grass is matted up.
Right.
So does it matter to you, like, let's say, like on Chick, out front of Chester Frost, to where the duck blind is, and you have that the ledge there that's probably 3-4 foot deep, but the grass is matted up on it. Does it matter to you to have that current coming by that grass mat, or would you rather have it to where it's a calm, to where you're like, you go back into the back of a pocket or back of a creek to where there's really no current coming by it? Would you prefer to have current coming by a grass mat, or would you rather it not?
The current tends to concentrate the fish. We'll push them into a smaller area. So I don't like to have a lot of current, because you catch one, it spooks the whole school, or it spooks a bunch of them, And so if I'm going to frog fish, I want them to be a little scattered out. I want them to be up under the mat. But when the current comes, they're going to pull out to that current edge. Right. And you can catch them better on other things, chatterbaits, spinner baits, that kind of stuff. So no current. They scatter out. They either go out deep or go off on some offshore stuff, or a lot of them will push up in underneath that grass. And that's when a frog really works. But if there's too much current, say there's flood conditions or post-rain conditions, stuff like that, I'm going to pull back up in a pocket and be just outside the current and start working that way. And if that doesn't work, go out and try something different on the offshore stuff.
Right. So we can't have you on, and we've had you on here for about 55 minutes, but we cannot have you on and not talk about that trophy that's to the back behind you to the right. I want to know, what was it that helped you win that tournament? What was the pattern that you found to be able to help you get on to those fish?
The biggest thing was the preparation for me. I focused on it for that tournament for 2.5 months. I mean, it's all I could think about, all I could live and breathe. I spent hours and hours watching videos and studying maps. And let's see, I got a stack. Matter of fact, I can turn my camera a little bit. So yeah, well, my microphone's in the way. So yeah, stack right there on the edge. Those are all lake maps, old paper lake maps. So I pull out. I've got 150 of them from all over the country.
What's
the
a paper
behind me on the counter is Lake Fork, which is where the championship is.
I was going to say, what's a paper lake map?
Yeah, exactly. So this one's 20 years old. This one right here, the Lake Fork map is 20 years old. So, but anyway, so I did a lot of studying, a lot of research, a lot of watching videos and things like that. And then I went on a scouting trip with my travel partner. We went up there for a week and fished Caddo when it was still able to do it before it went off limits. And I marked a bunch of different things on Caddo, and we, make a long story short, we decided we were going to fish Caddo. So I got an Airbnb on the north end of Caddo, which is close to do both the ramps that each of us wanted to fish. And then about 4 days after I booked that, I realized that Bistineau was also in play. And then Bistineau is on the opposite side of Shreveport. So he had two lakes in play. And I'm like, wait a minute, Bistineau gets dropped 9 feet in the fall. And so it was going to be and I'm like, crap. And I called my buddy. I said, I might have screwed up. I said, if Bistineau is in play, we're going to be in a world of hurt. And and so he stayed at Guntersville for a couple extra days, and I went when they opened the lakes back up to fish. I was there on Bistineau the first 2 days, and I caught over 90 inches both days.
Right.
Wow.
And I hadn't seen the lake in 2 years, and it was totally different than when I was there in the springtime and so on and so forth. So I was like, dude, I said, it's an hour and a half. It's 80 miles from our Airbnb, but I'm going to make that drive every day. And then the third day of pre-fishing, I went to Caddo and checked all my waypoints, and they were like 70-inch waypoints. There was no way I was going to go there and try to fish Caddo. Yeah. So that was the reason I did it. And then it was just a lot of just research and having the right baits in there according to what other tournaments had done and things like that, just having the right baits in the kayak. And I settled on matter of fact, I got it on here. I haven't taken it off my desk yet. I just settled on a white Nichols, spinnerbait with white blades for that water clarity. Water clarity was 6 to 9 inches. Sometime there was current, sometime there wasn't. And just threw it at every cypress tree and stump and lay down I could have. But with that drawdown, it was really cool. I found a drain that over 5,000 acres of that lake pushed through, and that 5,000 acres was less than a foot deep or out of the water. So every fish in those 5,000 acres of cypress trees were in that drain.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, and then what Caleb said is always try to be at the head of them to find the biggest one. So that's what I tried to figure out, where was because I knew they were moving out because the lake was still dropping a half an inch a day or so. And so I knew they were slowly moving out, and I just tried to stay ahead of them for the big fish. And that's kind of how it paid off.
Man, and when I seen, because we get emails and stuff with doing the media with bass. And so they'll send an email out to us. And when I seen, at first I was like, I thought it was a mistake because I was like, Gene Jensen. And then they show you the picture with you holding up the trophy and stuff. And I was like, heck yeah. And so,
The reason I fished that tournament was kind of funny, though, is I had qualified for the Georgia State Championship, which is that other trophy that's to the other side, is that little one. I qualified for the Georgia State Championship, and then the top 10 finisher, or the top 4 or 5 finishers in that tournament qualified for the national championship, which was on Lake Fork. And I was like, and it was on Lake Hartwell. And I was like, I hate Lake Hartwell. Hate it. I was like, there's no way I'm going to do any good on Lake Hartwell. So I put all my focus on Caddo because I love Caddo and I love Vistino. And so that was the funny thing is I fished it just to finish in the top 5 so I could qualify for the championship.
Now, when in that tournament, Gene, did that qualify you to fish the Classic next year?
Not the Bassmasters Classic, but
Yeah.
the Bassmasters Kayak Championship, which is 3 days or 2 days before the Bassmasters Classic, and then they give the awards for our tournament on the Bassmasters stage the first day.
Yeah, so you're going to be there for that then? That's
I'll be there.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll see you up there then because we're gonna head out there and do some filming for them. Have you ever? I just got to where I started throwing the Berkeley Credge.
Yep.
Have you thrown that Berkeley Credge on like a blue heron lake, and like when you see them schooling up and just burning that sucker back? Have you done that?
I have done it with a JDM bait that's very similar but smaller than the Credge. I think it's called the Riser. And same thing, I'd throw it up, and I used to do this with spy baits. Throw it out, let it sink 2 inches, and start reeling it just under the surface. I do the same thing with the Credge, and I do the same thing with the Riser. And the reason is because blueback herring move really fast in the water. They're a lot faster moving baits or bait fish than a shad or anything else. And so you want to work everything real fast. And when you're walking a spook and stuff like that, you do it fast. Yeah. Same sort of deal, but it works really good when they're schooling, but they're not breaking the surface.
Right.
They don't really want to come up. That's when it really works. Right. And I've given it a little bit of play, probably 4 or 5 days of fishing it, and done pretty good. But yeah, the Credge is a different thing. I don't fish it like a jerkbait because I don't feel like it gets the attention from the bass that you need it.
Right.
Now, and when I first tried it when it came out, and I tried working it as a jerkbait, and I'm like, after probably about 30 minutes of it, I just literally just cut it off and threw it in the bottom of the boat and be like, I'll get that later. But I was talking to Alex Rudd, and he's the one that told me, he said, you do not need to work it as a jerkbait.
Yeah, just reel it.
You have to burn. Yeah, and he says, and if you're on a lake that has spotted bass, he says you cannot reel it fast enough.
Right.
So.
Yep.
But
makes sense.
And have you fished Parksville?
Yeah. Yep. I actually fished it with Caleb and Alex one day. So.
Oh, really? Yep. That is an interesting lake. I have not caught. I've gone out there with Caleb and a couple other buddies, and it's one of those lakes that I love to hate because everybody that's on the boat with me goes and they catch some monster spotted bass, and I'm out there and I'm just catching like these 1.5 pound, 2 pounders, and I'm like, this sucks. And so,
yeah, I've never caught anything really big there, but I haven't given it a good enough try to really be able to do it. So mostly was just doing it for
fun. What, and I always wanted to ask you this because I grew up in Nashville, and so I've always fished like a river system, and grew up on Old Hickory Lake, and then moved to Chattanooga. So we've got Chickamauga, Nickajack, Gunnersville. Just what is like your quick answer to, I'm wanting to fish, like let's say Lanier, where it's deep water. What is the best thing to do when you're fishing a deep water reservoir like that compared to like a river system? You got to find current. If you don't have any current, you might as well just pack up and just go back to the house. Yeah. So on a highland reservoir and deep water, and Lanier is deep, clear water. And so what is your, how would you go about fishing a deep, clear water
Well,
lake.
it really, it's almost the same way I fish any other lake, is I look for points to start with, and points that are associated with creeks are even better, even if it's on the main lake, but if it's close to the mouth of a creek, depending on the time of the year and everything else. But points, and then channel swings, no matter what time of the year, the bass aren't going to be far from where a channel, a river, a creek channel swings close to a shallow point or something like that.
Right.
They're going to be in that area or somewhere along that area. It's usually where I start first. I'm an offshore angler. I used to not be, but as I learned more and more about how to fish, how to use side scan and down imaging and stuff like that over the years, and then now forward facing sonar, I love offshore angling. I love it no matter what. In Clark's Hill, 15 years of fishing a blueback herring lake will make you an offshore angler, because 9 months out of the year, you're not going to catch them unless you know how to fish an offshore something.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing for those, especially Lake Lanier, and then docks, which I hate floating docks. Absolutely despise them. But Lanier, I spent a week on Lanier, told myself I'm going to learn how to fish floating docks. And that's when I caught my personal best spotted bass this past year, So it is just a different thing. And I hate throwing a wacky rig, but I throw it around a daggone floating dock because that's what catches fish.
So what is another question that says, what is your favorite fish to catch besides a bass? I guess just bass species.
Redfish. Yep, I love to go to Louisiana and catch redfish.
So I had a buddy of mine went down to Louisiana to catch some reds, and he was catching them reds on an A rig, and which it did not last. The A rig did not last long at all. After a couple of them, just demolished it. But that's one thing I've always wanted to do, is go catch some of them bull reds. Catching some peacock bass was on the bucket list, but I've been able to go out and do that quite a few times now. We do that after I cast every year. We'll go down to the Everglades. And so, but yeah,
there's something about catching reds in a kayak in super skinny water. I don't care if it's a 10-incher or a 29-incher or a 40-incher. There is, dude, and spooking one out of a pocket and it being such skinny water into your boat that he bumps your boat on the way out and almost knocks you out of the kayak. And it is so much fun. And with kayaks having motors these days, you can get out a lot further and be able to handle the biggest concern is being able to handle the current, either coming back into the tide or wind and stuff like that. But when I first started, it was paddle only. There weren't motors on kayaks. And so you had to plan your day accordingly, and you couldn't go far. But now with motors, you can go and have a good old time down Louisiana.
Right. Another thing I did not want to miss is the Team Kayak Series.
Yep.
Can we talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's something that we're starting this year. Me and my travel partner, Michael. I got the idea a few years ago. Actually, I think it's 2 years ago, where there was really no kayak series that were partner based. Right. It's not a 5-man team. It's you and your buddy sharing cost, which with the economy the way it is now, it's really cool to have somebody that you can rely on where you can split the cost of whatever. And I just wanted to start a series that was affordable and that had really good returns. I'm not trying to make any money at this. Neither is Michael. We just want to, we'll end up making money on the back end, maybe further down the road, but that's not our priority. We want it to be a good old time, and I'm interested in seeing the strategies that people use, because you don't have to stay together. You can split up and do what you need to do, and you can communicate with each other and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of really cool things. We basically took the Bassmaster Kayak Series rules and we made them work for us. And so it's going to be on Tourney X. It's going to be $200 a team, so $100 a person, 100% payout after the fees I've got to pay Tourney X and that kind of stuff, which is like $5 a person. Now, that kind of stuff, paying judges. We're going to try to judge the first one and see how it goes, me and Michael. And we may end up having to hire somebody to start judging for us, but we'll see how it goes. The first tournament is March the 1st on Hartwell. And we haven't nailed down the dates. We were supposed to do that today, but the knucklehead never called me back. But we're going to fish. Don't put this in stone because we were bouncing back and forth 2 or 3 different places. But Kentucky Lake for sure, Hartwell for sure, Gunnersville for sure. And then Santee Cooper is going to be in July, as far as we know. Nice. We wanted to find a lake that had a lot of trees where they weren't going to have pleasure boaters all over the place in July.
Right.
And so we picked Santee Cooper, which isn't the best month to fish Santee, but it's still a really good fish in that time of the year. And then either Chickamauga or maybe another lake. And it's just going to be a blast. It really is. It's just going to be a good old time. I'm having trophies designed right now, which I want them to be as freaking. I want somebody to see them behind somebody in a picture and know exactly what they are.
Yeah,
right. I know what it is. Which also means that only the winners get trophies, and the second and third place will get these smaller ones, like what Bassmaster does, like that one behind me, the smaller one behind me. But it's just I just want it to be affordable and be a good time. And with KBF not doing the trail series next year, and I don't think Hobie's going to do one next year. I really don't. Just from the vibe I get. Don't quote me on that, but as far as I know, as far as I can gather, they're not going to have a tournament this year. So there's going to be open time for people to do it. And we've just been waiting for Bassmasters, for Steve to come out with the Bassmasters tournament schedule before, so we don't sit on top of that, so we don't schedule on top of that. And so it should be maybe by middle of next week, we have our schedule out.
Right.
It should be just a good time, dude. It really should. There's already teams forming. We have a Facebook page called the Team Kayak Series. I would suggest anybody interested, come over there and jump on that page and join it. And that way we can, you can know what's going on. So it's going to be a blast.
Now, and with not knowing too terribly much, I mean, pretty much all the kayak fishing and stuff, I used to have some kayaks. I did not do too terribly much of it. But once I got my boat, I sold them. And so I just been, my whole life pretty much is fishing out of a boat or fishing out of the bank. When you're fishing a kayak tournament, you're not like, let's say the lake is Gunnersville. Do they have it parted? Like, would y'all have it like parted off to where you can only fish in this amount of area? And
so they can go. You can, in kayak tournaments, you can access most of them. There's some club tournaments that are different, but most of them you can access the lake anywhere from public access. So say you're at Chester Frost Park and you want to put in on the side that doesn't have a boat ramp. As long as you're accessing it from a public spot, you can slide your kayak into the water, or a public boat ramp or anything, or a pay boat ramp that anybody in the tournament can pay to go launch there. But if it's only available to campers who are camping at that campsite, that's not legal to launch there. That kind of gives you an idea what that is. So anywhere on that body of water, we usually give boundaries. On the Tennessee River, it's easy. It's dam to dam, and up the creeks, it's to the first shoal. So if you got to get out of your kayak to drag up over a shoal, you're out of bounds.
Right.
And that's
because I've always wondered how they done that, because I mean, no chick and all that. I mean, there's tournaments every weekend out of it, and we'll see kayakers all the time fishing tournaments. And I didn't know, like, if they put the boat in or their kayak in, like, let's say, like what you said, Chester Frost, so they can take out anytime they want and move to another area that is a public access area.
Yeah, and I've done it several times in tournaments. I know a lot of people that do it. It takes time out of your day, but if you've got the confidence to go make that big move, it's just like running up the lake for 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Right.
My rule of thumb is if it takes me more than 45 minutes to get my boat out of the water and put it back in the water, I'm not going to make that run.
Right.
No matter when it is during the tournament. So I try to plan accordingly. So
Right. Yeah, that's something I've always wondered, because we'll see them, but you don't really see. Usually, you may see 1 to 3 kayakers that's back up in a slough or something like that. And I'm like, I know there's like 150 of y'all guys out here. I just didn't know how in the world how they done that. We got Jen and Dustin Muse says, "Hey Gene, long time no see." They in which I think you know them because they're all part of the Bonafide family.
Oh, I've known them
And
since before Bonafide family. Yeah, it's I got
oh,
pictures.
really?
I got pictures of their grown kids when they were little bitty. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, she's still itty bitty herself, so but she's got a big attitude, but
Got
she's
a big
itty bitty.
attitude and big heart. That's for sure. Oh, I love them. They're awesome.
Awesome
So,
people.
but we've had you on for an hour and 15 minutes.
We can keep going. I'm good. My kids are out of they're at band stuff right now. So
So we'll go for a little bit longer, guys. If y'all have any more questions to ask, now would be the time because we're going to start wrapping it up.
yeah, the big thing I tell you, I'll talk about. Let me talk about TikTok for a second. I know a lot of guys aren't on TikTok, and the way I've always run my business is I try to pay attention to what the high school kids are doing. So in 5 or 6, 7, 8 years, they're still going to be on that platform, and I will be a viable, influence. But with TikTok, I love doing TikTok lives, and so being that the reason I put, I've been waiting for Starlink to get to the point where I could do this. And they just recently finally came out with the little mini, the Starlink mini. So I mount it to my kayak, and I've got great Wi-Fi wherever I'm at in the world now. And so I do TikTok lives where I can teach on the water, where people do like this, do a Q&A, and I'm sitting there, okay, and I've got the stuff there, I've got the water there. I can flip my camera around, and I can teach on the water and do that as much as I can. I'm not going to do it much this winter just because I'm not going to get out on the water much. I'm going to be doing a lot of other stuff. But once the water warms back up and stuff like that, tournaments, I always try to do the second day of a 2-day tournament. For obvious reasons, I don't do the first day. But I try to do the second day and live that, which the Bassmaster one, I did that the second day. There was a bunch of people watching it the whole day. They got to see me catch that one fish at the end. That 15 minutes left, I caught the fish that bumped me from third to first.
Wow.
It was a $9,000 fish, and they got to see it live. It was just that cool. So TikTok's a huge thing. I will be doing a lot more selling of sponsor stuff and things like that on TikTok. I'm going to try to keep my YouTube stuff as pure as it has always been. But I got to make money. So that's kind of where I'm running with TikTok. And then the guide service on Guntersville, I'll kick that back off in March or April. And I guide, I've got a kayak. If you don't have a kayak and want to get in one, I've got one that's rigged up exactly like the one I fish out of every day.
Heck yeah. Now, and because I also wanted to talk about that, because let's say somebody wants to do like a map study with you. Is that possible too?
Oh yeah, I do online stuff. I do it all through Fishing Chaos, which is an app, and it's also a website. But if you go into their charter section, you can find my charter page, and I'll do 1 hour online coaching is what I call it.
Right.
And so I'll do that, and it always lasts longer than an hour. I just had to put a time on there.
It's just like every time you get together and just people just start talking about fishing, it's just like today. I mean, it didn't seem like, we're on here almost an hour and 20 minutes, and I look up and I'm like, golly, it's already been almost an hour.
Yeah.
And so,
the same way, they make me put a time limit on that, or put a time on the website, so I have to do something. And so, but yeah, it's a good time. And then the guide service is a lot of fun. I do it on Guntersville. I would do it in Tennessee, but they charge $500 for a guide license these days, and I'm kind of, I don't like that idea.
Right.
And then out of a kayak, I don't have to have a captain's license, because the captain's license covers the operator of the vessel. Well, I'm not operating my client's vessel; he's doing it, so I don't have to have it. And that's not trying to skirt around the law or anything else. You just don't need one. So
right. So we got a question that says, Gene, I've just now got into finesse fishing, and I have a 7-foot medium heavy moderate action that I use for a drop shot, but I'm having issues on hook set that
You
I
could have
keep
stopped right
losing
there, and
fish.
I could have told you exactly what the rest of that said.
So he's asking, what is your drop shot setup?
I use a medium light spinning rod.
Yeah.
And if you're using an open hook, don't set the hook. I remember years and years ago, Ryan Lamb, the kid that used to live with me who died of an overdose. I was captaining his high school tournament when it was before it got to where it is now. It was the early days of high school fishing, and we pulled up on a spot. And we were drop shot. He was drop shot in the over a brush pile, and he'd get a bite, and I'd be screaming to him, "Don't set the hook! Don't set the hook!" Just start reeling. Just start reeling is the biggest thing. But a medium heavy is too stiff. Yeah. And that's why you're having trouble with hook sets. And then if you've got it a weedless hook, you have to set the hook a little bit more just to get that hook through the worm and into the fish. But medium light.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've had, especially like if I'm going and I'm flipping and used to when you're and all that, or even Texas rig, and you're having to do that hook set, and then if I go down to where I am finessing like a drop shot or something, that is the hardest thing for me to do, is to make that in my mind. I'm just like, all right, there it is. Ooh, and
so my very first instructional video on my YouTube channel was the drop shot, and I was drop shotting next to cypress trees in North Carolina, and I show you just reel into them, and then you pull the rod back. You never jerk the hook.
Yeah, it's just more or less kind of just leaning back on them to kind of just let it to do that, right?
Yep.
So, what is your favorite technique that you have made a video on?
Chatterbait.
That's been one of my favorites too.
I've
learned.
Yeah.
And
it has changed how I fish, a lot of it, because I've figured out things for the chatterbait that most people don't know and haven't figured out themselves yet, which is a lot of fun. And I talk about them in videos. There's a lot of ways I fish them that people don't, or at least you don't hear about people fishing them. So, and
I've thrown a chatterbait before, but I've learned so much from you on the chatterbait to where I made the modifications and stuff that you have talked about. But I've realized, and I've noticed, and I don't know if you've done this or not, but I had put a bobber stopper on the chatterbait and then butted it down. So like something that's not the jackhammer. I mean, it starts pretty much as soon as you start cranking on it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go and get like a custom one,
where
there might be that little, right. And so that I put that bobber stop, and it found out by accident, but that bobber stop, something that I guess it just puts enough little weight on it to kind of put the tension on that blade to where it does start. That bobber stopper tends to start that blade just a hair faster.
Yeah, a little bit faster. Huh.
Yeah.
I don't have any that have the split ring. I'd have to go find one and do it, but and there are times that I caught fewer fish on it this year than I ever have. And especially on my home lake, where 2 years ago I was, jacking them, and I was slow rolling it just barely on the bottom where I could feel the blade, but I was still kicking up a little bit of silt off the hard bottom.
Right.
And just jacking them. And this year I couldn't buy a bite on one. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah. But I'd throw a trick shad, and I had days where if I had to put it into a weight, 30 plus pounds, every day for 5 days straight on a trick shad on this lake. And mainly because I had found the mega school of gizzard shad that were spawning, and these giant schools of giant bass were satelliting that area. And I just, it was Katie bar the door, and it was in front of a campground. So all the campers on day 2, they pull their lawn chairs up and set them on the edge and watched me fish.
So, but guys, I cannot illustrate how much, like, if you're really wanting to learn a different technique, or even if you know how to do something, go to and watch his YouTube channel, because I guarantee you there's a video out there that's going to help you out. I mean, I think he's got over 900 videos. He's got a bunch videos on there, and it's real simple, real easy. He breaks it down, and then you actually can watch him fish, so you can see how his retrieve is. And again, that retrieve may not work for you, but it's kind of gives you a good starting point to be able to start figuring things out. Because if you've gone out and fished more than once or twice, you know that you can go to within a day, within a few hours. I mean, fish can change how they want to bite anyway. So that retrieve may not work. It may work, but the next time you go out, it may not. You just kind of got to figure it out.
And you know as well as I do, no two anglers fish exactly the same.
No.
You know? And I always try to put little tidbits in my videos that make you go, wait a minute, or wow, or something like that. You know, it's just because I do things different, and I think I see things different. You know, I on the Bass University podcast I did last week, I told them these are professional anglers that have been fishing their whole life. I told them something that they had never heard of and it had to do with this tournament right here. I told them something that I had found that I just never heard, that they had never heard of. And something that I'd figured out. And it was all about spinnerbait fishing and that kind of stuff. And you can always learn something, but I always try to leave that little bit of tidbit in there that may make the seasoned angler say, basically just put another arrow in their quiver. So where if they needed to try something different, they would have that bank of knowledge. So
and that's one thing that I've always, because I don't know how many chatterbait videos you have. Quite a few chatterbait videos on there, and then but each one they're similar, but each one has something different that you focused on to kind of help somebody else. So just because you watched one chatterbait video does not mean that the other chatterbait videos are going to be just like it. Another thing that a video that helped me out a lot was there's a video that you done about fishing a point and fishing a football head jig off of that point. And how you explained about this is what, and it really was like if you're going down the water, it really was like a nothing little point.
Yeah, do nothing point. Yep.
Yeah, but you seen something that was either on the maps or something like that you're like watched, and you explained, and then you just showed how you're working that football head jig off of that point. And so, guys, there's just so much information and knowledge that to have somebody that loves teaching and that goes into the details that he goes into just because he wants you to catch a fish. And at the end of every video, he tells everybody to share his YouTube channel.
One of the things that I have that I'm the most proud of out of all of this crap, the thing that I'm the most proud of is my beginner videos.
Yes.
So, and I'll give you a backstory of that. It's it's not really a sob backstory, but it's my sister has a son that and when he was young, wanted to learn how to fish, and his dad wasn't an outdoorsman, and just wasn't happening. And she was intimidated to go into the local tackle shop and ask Bubba behind the counter what she should do. And so she came to me when I was talking about doing videos. She goes, I want you to do every video like you're talking to a single mom who has a child that wants to learn how to fish, is what she said. Let me move that so it doesn't do that again. But she literally, I was like, okay. And so when I started my beginner videos, if you're a seasoned angler, you're not going to like the first 4 because it's about how to get a license and how to be legal and all that other stuff. But I want to have that. I have that playlist mainly to teach guys who are starting green, and those guys who have gone out with a buddy and gone fishing and fallen in love with bass fishing or anything, and they want to learn more, and they can just go and watch those videos and just do it.
Yeah.
I would love
So,
to. I'd love to see how many thousands of people I've taught how to fish just on those
well,
15, 20 videos.
But the thing that I really enjoy is because like what I was saying, like at the end of your videos, I mean, you give the little spell about, hey, share. I mean, because we got to share. But the last thing you say is, let me teach them how to fish.
Yep.
And to me, you're doing it, and you don't go out there. You do have, like, let's say, like for your rods and stuff like that. And I know, like with your rod sponsors and stuff, like you tell them, hey, I want to fish with the $100 rod, because most people that are watching my channel is going to be throwing $100 rod.
Yep.
They're not going to go out there and they're not going to spend $300 on a rod and then having to go spend $200 on a reel. And so you use the equipment that you're actually talking to.
Yeah, I mean, I fish Cast King rods and reels.
Yeah.
Which surprisingly, now don't go back 5, 6, 7, 8 years when they were trash. And I'll flat tell you, and I've been friends with them since they first showed up on the scene, and they have gotten so much better.
A lot better, right?
But they're only, 70, 80. I had them send me some of their $40 and $50 reels. I haven't put line on them yet because I just got them a couple weeks ago. But I want to try those out before I start talking about them. But I think that they're a great deal for those guys who don't have the money to go buy a $200 reel or a $300 rod. And it's just that you're right. That's how I believe. I believe that the guys that watch my stuff are not the guys that are going to go spend $120,000 on a bass boat and $500 on a rod and $250 on a Shimano reel. They're not going to do it. It's great that some of them do, but I'm just, a funny story. I was coming in on my Alumacraft one day with a buddy of mine, and it was right when that first $100,000 Ranger hit the market, and there was a guy fishing the riprap on Gunnersville in one of those boats. I said, "That's cool. Look what he's doing." He's like, "What?" He's like, "He's doing the same thing I've been doing." And he's doing it. I do it. I'm doing it for 30,000. He's doing it for 100,000.
Right. Yeah. My grandfather used to, because I always would say, man, I want a bass boat. I want a fast bass boat. And my grandfather would always say, you can't catch a fish going 70. So.
I say the same daggum thing. It's hard as heck to catch one going 60 miles an hour.
Yeah. So, but brother, we're going to start wrapping it up. We have a question that we ask everybody that comes on, and it has been our signature. We've been doing this podcast for a little over 2 years, and so it's been our signature question probably after about the 4th or 5th episode. So every episode we ask, and so now it's your turn to answer this question, brother. So Norman, take it away.
First of all, J-Man, it's been a pleasure, dude. And just a whirlwind of information, man. We can't thank you enough for coming on tonight and just sharing some experiences with us and sharing some of your knowledge, man. Just a whirlwind of knowledge, dude. And keep in mind also, next week we're live each and every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have another heck of a show next week lined up. Next week's show, it is going to be hammer time, as we will have this year's the champ, the 2024 Bassmaster Classic champion, Justin Hamner, is going to be joining us next week on the show. Remember, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week. Be there, be square. But anyway, Gene, if you were to have one person to go fish with for the day, and this person could still be with us or could be passed away, who would that person be, and why would you want to fish with them for the day?
Well, Dad's my number one. As a matter of fact, I'll show you the picture. Another sob story. But I was trout fishing with my dad one day, years and years ago, and that's him with his knees in the water. And I'm a believer in Christ, and something told me to turn around and take pictures of my dad. And so I grabbed my camera out of and this is before cell phones had cameras. I grabbed my camera out of my pocket and I started taking pictures of my dad. That was the last day I ever fished with my dad. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's shortly thereafter, and then couldn't fish with me anymore. Never has been in a boat with me. That son of a gun would never get in a boat with me. He's like, I ain't fishing with those broom handles, that kind of stuff. And so, but we had a lot of fun. Dad would be my number one. But number two, first person ever comes to mind is Gerald Swindle. Him and I are great friends. We whenever we get together, me, him, and Lulu, we talk gardening. And we do a lot of trash talking on TikTok or on Instagram when we're doing gardens. But years ago, I had the wonderful opportunity to watch him do stand-up comedy.
Wow.
And it's been one of the highlights of my life. And it was during a Bassmaster event, something like it was hilarious. But just to go, I want to pick his brain about Gunnersville. I want to pick his brain about what he does and how he does it and that kind of stuff. Just, being that we're already good friends and we only live an hour and a half from each other, but whenever he can fish, he's hunting, or whenever he can fish with me, he's always in the woods. Yeah. And that's usually October, November is usually the only time I can get away to do that too. So one day we will.
We're talking about pretty colors earlier, and all these pretty color frogs and everything. People buy them for the lux, and it brings me back to something Gerald had out a while back. When he's flipping a jig, he says he's going to have a brown and a black.
Yep.
When they're eating the black, he's going to be throwing the black. When they stop eating the black, he's going to go to the brown, and when they stop eating the brown, he'll go back to the black. Yep. so anyway, awesome, man.
Yeah. But guys, we've had it's almost 1,400 people. Hit the links that's in the description. Yep. Go follow Gene and support him, and with YouTube, smash that subscribe, TikTok, Facebook, do all the liking and following and all that, and send him a message saying that you saw him here on Deck Talk Podcast. And man, it's we can't thank y'all enough for what y'all do, even for supporting Gene and his family. Because we couldn't do it. It'd just be three guys here just chit chatting if it wasn't for y'all. We could not do what we done, and definitely couldn't have made a platform that we have and what Gene has if it was not for y'all. So we want to say thank you so much for that. Again, Gene, thank you for coming on and giving us that knowledge that you have, and just the time of day to come and help somebody be able to learn how to fish. And so we do want everybody to go over there, learn something from him, because there must be almost 1,000 videos that he has on there. And if you can't learn something from it,
don't hate me because I'm in a kayak. All right.
Right. So guys, we're going to let it go from there, and we'll see you next week with Justin Hamner. And Gene, again, thank you, brother, for coming on, and we'll see you out on the water sometime.
Thanks.
We'll see y'all.
Yep.
See you guys.